At age 50, his brother told him that the music star had a heart attack. Yeah, but even the shape of your face has changed. It's not I've had any plastic surgery on my face. Just my nose, Michael Jackson said. He wasn't just the king of pop, he was a global icon whose life was both legendary and controversial. When he died suddenly in 2009, the world was shocked by the many rumors and unanswered questions about his death. Now, new details from his autopsy report have come to light, revealing there were shocking facts that were kept from the public for more than 10 years. Was there something more sinister going on behind the headlines? In today's video, we'll be digging into the untold truths from Michael's last days that could change the way we think about his tragic death forever. Stay tuned, you don't want to miss this early life and rise to fame. Michael Joseph Jackson is one of only a few children born out of 10. He was born on August 29, 1958, in Gary, Indiana. His closest father, Joe Jackson, was a steel worker who saw talent in his children and encouraged them to reach their full potential by starting a family band. By 1964, Michael Jackson was 6 years old and playing the tambourine with his brothers Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, and Marlon in a group called the Jackson 5. Michael started out singing backup vocals, but that didn't last long because he was naturally talented. Soon, he was the lead singer of the group, mesmerizing everyone with his charming and strong vocals. Joe Jackson's electric management system helped the young band, the Jackson 5, start going to local shows and clubs that needed talent and getting praise for their energetic performances. In 1968, personnel director of Berry Gordy signed the group to his record label, Town Records. The group's public appearances were harmed by Gordy's strict rules, which slowed their growth. Their first 4 singles, I Want You Back, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There, all made it to the Billboard Hot 100. This made them the first group in history to do so, history to achieve such success. The Jackson 5's fame caused young Michael to be featured in magazines all over America within weeks. To follow the Jackson 5's chart performance, Michael started working on his own when he was 13. In 1971, he released his first solo single, "Due to Be There," which went to #1. Song Ben, which came out in 1972. It was these early songs that helped Michael go from being a child wonder to an up-and-coming solo star. The singer's childish voice was already heavy with feelings thanks to his artistic abilities, pointing to the start of an amazing solo career in music that was still to come. By 1975, the Jacksons were having problems with Town, their management, over the band and paying for the use of their music. Randy, the youngest member of the band, left Town and signed with Epic Records. The group became known as the Jacksons and released songs like Shake Your Body Down to the Ground. They also went on a number of tours, but Michael, who was less controlled artistically, left the group and focused on his own music. That change led to his most famous solo album, Off the Wall, which came out in 1979 and marked the start of his solo fame and global supremacy. While Michael's meteoric rise to fame was impressive, the big changes in his appearance quickly became an important part of his story, bringing up questions and causing controversies. Michael Jackson's transformation began in the early 1980s when he is thought to have broken his nose during a dance rehearsal in 1979. Before Dr. Stephen Hoeflin operated on him, the king had never had cosmetic surgery. Instead of just fixing the nose, which she did successfully, the doctor left the patient with some. Following breathing problems, he had to have a second surgery. This was the first of many cosmetic procedures that would change Michael's face over the next few years. The first surgeries were medically necessary, but over time Michael became obsessed with changing how he looked, and people started to comment on how different he looked. In the 1980s, the singer was diagnosed with vitiligo, a skin disorder that causes patches of skin to lose their color. Dr. Arnold Klein, a dermatologist, also said that his skin got noticeably lighter because of the disease. To keep up his appearance, he covered up the spots with makeup and used skin bleach that Dr. Klein had given him. His skin changed so dramatically that the media paid attention, and rumors began that he was using skin bleach on purpose, which Michael would strongly deny until the end of his life. In the 1980s, there was a growing cult or obsession with Michael, and his drastic changes in appearance were the subject of tabloid exposes and grotesque fantasies. The most famous one said that he would take a nap in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber to avoid getting wrinkles. This story came from a picture of him in the chamber during his visit to a burn center, which was completely false. His self-imposed exile and Oho's strange actions only made things worse. Michael shrugged off these tall tales. Even though they didn't make sense, they solved the puzzle, and the public's interest in Michael's new public image grew over time. In the 1990s, Michael's need to look perfect continued with more surgeries allegedly done by Dr. Hoflin and Dr. Klein. His nose became pinched and his cheeks became sharp. Transformations did not match his words, where he said that most surgeries after the initial rhinoplasties were pointless. In interviews about plastic surgery, Michael D. said that all of his changes were due to health problems and not because he was obsessed, and that he did so much damage to his appearance because of his many obsessions. With vitiligo and lupus, he was obsessed with controlling how he looked, which was impossible in the end because the personal and public parts of his life were in such a constant battle that it could never be resolved. Michael Jackson's battle with personal demons and prescription drug abuse. Antidote date back to the 1980s, when he got second-degree burns on his head while filming a Pepsi commercial with fireworks. The injuries he got caused him to take painkillers like Demerol, which was prescribed to him by a surgeon named Dr. Stephen Hoflin. From then on, he started to see the need to take medicine not only for his physical pain, but also for the stress that came with being a global star. At the same time that Michael became famous, his health got worse for a number of reasons, including chronic pain from multiple surgeries, dance-related injuries, lupus, and the. Because of the psychological pressure from the media, he turned more and more to strong sedatives and even stronger ones. His longtime friend and dermatologist, Dr. Arnold Klein, was known to prescribe a mix of drugs, including strong painkillers, sedatives, and anti-anxiety drugs like Xanax and Ativan. Michael became dependent on these drugs, gradually increased, and Klein started giving Moses injections in addition to the antidotes so that he could handle the performances. In the late 1990s, Michael met German anesthesiologists who introduced him to propofol, a strong anesthetic used in surgery. This was a worrying development because the drug can't be used outside of hospitals. When regular sleep aids didn't work, Michael turned to repeating Propel injections as often as possible with the help of Dr. Conrad Murray while he practiced for his This Is It show. The drug sedation was the only way he could get any sleep. But on June 25, 2009, his strong addiction killed him. Michael Jackson almost lost his life when he tried to get off of a prescription antidote. At the time, his personal doctor, Dr. Conrad Murray, gave him a lethal mix of Propel and benzodiazepines, and he later had a cardiac arrest that ended his life. An autopsy showed that he had been using many psychoactive drugs, which showed how addicted he was. He was then charged with involuntary manslaughter of. Murray pushed the limits of what people knew about Michael Jackson's life and art by showing how his drug addiction killed him in the end. Money problems and court cases were getting worse at the same time. Michael Jackson was looking forward to a career-defining comeback tour, but the constant pressure would finally break him in the last few years. In the early 2000s, there were money problems in court cases. There were worries about Michael Jackson's celebrity debts and lifestyle because it started to hurt his finances. Even though he made hundreds of millions of dollars during his career, the expensive Neverland Ranch, its objects, and the high-living people who worked there broke him. It cost several millions of dollars a year to maintain his 2.5-acre legendary property called Neverland, plus legal fees and settlements like the $23. The $1 million he paid the Chandler family in 1993 was a big loss for him, and a sign of the coming economic collapse that would hurt him until the very end of his life. One of Michael's music contracts was for a 50% share of the ATV Music publishing catalog, which included the publishing rights to songs written by the Beatles and other artists. He owned this investment with Sony and shared the equity. Catalog was worth more than $1 billion, but Michael was having trouble keeping ownership of it because he owed a lot of money. In 2006, Fortress Investments threatened to foreclose on his loans, so he refinanced. This caused him to sell some of his shares to Sony, which kept him as the owner of the catalog. It limited his control over the catalog, which many saw as a move to keep him from going bankrupt because of his mounting debts. Michael also faced a lot of legal restrictions, which hurt both his reputation and his finances. The worst was in 2005, when he was charged with child molestation. The legal fees alone were said to have been over $20,000. Michael was cleared of all the charges against him, but the case drained him financially and emotionally. The case got a lot of attention from the media, and it's understandable that he didn't have many endorsements. This made it nearly impossible for him to stay afloat without going into debt. With money problems threatening to overwhelm him, Michael escaped and went to Bahrain and then Ireland to get away from the trouble. In 2009, Michael needed a miracle to save himself from a circus of problems related to debt and loss of reputation. That's why he announced the plans for this tour, including 5,050 concerts at the O2 Arena in London, which seemed to have been set up as a trap. During the pull for rehabilitation and financial recovery, the tour was expected to bring in millions of dollars. However, it also put a lot of stress on Michael's already weak health. As the rehearsal dates got closer, his anxiety levels rose, which caused him to take more sleeping pills. Sadly, Michael Jackson died not long after that, just a few weeks before the first concert. There were still a lot of unmet financial expectations for him, which made things difficult for his estate. In March 2009, Michael Jackson shared the great news that he was going to perform This Is It A. The tour was supposed to only have 10 shows at the O2 Arena in London at first, but because of fan pressure, it quickly grew to more than 50 shows, making it one of the biggest in pop history. Incredibly painful tours in his life. It was a tour that many people saw as an investment opportunity, as it was expected to bring in dirty millions and help Michael get out of his situation and pay off his fast-rising bills. While the rewards were high, it was also impossible for him to give a perfect performance, which put even more pressure on him. The rehearsals for the performance were very intense, thanks to Kenny Ortega, the tour director. Michael Jackson, who was already very tired and sick, did his best to make every move and detail of the rehearsal as perfect as possible, even when he was feeling hopeless from being so tired. As the date got closer, concerns about his health grew. Worries grew because he had been sleep-deprived for a long time and couldn't get any rest. Hinz relied on Dr. Conrad Murray, his family doctor, who gave him all kinds of antidotes every day to keep him asleep at night. Most of these antidotes, including a very strong sleeping substance, worked. Propofol were abused and used for things they weren't supposed to be used for. It's clear that the performance part of the tour was already going on June 24, 2009. Michael put on an amazing rehearsal at the Staples Center that showed flashes of his legendary skill, but he did it right before going to sleep. In the early hours of June 25th, Dr. Murphy gave him another dose of propofol. Suddenly, Michael stopped breathing, and he was pronounced dead later that same day. The news of his death shocked everyone. The This Is It tour had not only come to an end, but it had also ended in a way that was unhealthy, and devastating. Kids all over the world loved the superstar. He was on his way to making a brave comeback when the terrible things that happened that night took his life. The night of June 24th, 2009, was a normal one for Michael Jackson. He was busy getting ready for his This Is It tour and had been practicing for hours at the Staples Center, where he wowed audiences with his performances. He then made his way back home. Michael got to his rented mansion in Holby Hill, Los Angeles, tired but still unable to rest because of severe insomnia. He asked his doctor, Dr. Conrad Murray, for help, and over the next 10 weeks it became clear that Michael had been heavily relying on Murray's services the whole time. Giving him sleeping pills that were just as strong as the illegal drug caused him to fall asleep around 1:30 a.m. Michael told Dr. Murray that he couldn't sleep and asked for the sedative he called the milk, which is probably short for propofol. Even though Murray knew that using the drug could be dangerous, he was persuaded and started giving Michael different sedatives that night, starting with Valium and ending with midazolam. Murray tried several times but failed to put Michael to sleep. He was frustrated that his patient couldn't sleep and wanted to do something about it. At 10:40 a.m., Michael finally got his way and Murray gave him 25 mg of propofol. A fatal shot just a short time after the right fall was given. Dr. Murray walked away from Michael's bedside, and when he returned, he found that Michael had stopped breathing. Murray tried to do CPR on the patient, but the techniques he used were wrong, and there were no tools he could have used. Murray also didn't call 911 right away. Instead, he did something else. He physically made 2 actions towards staff members, which lost time that he couldn't afford to lose. Finally, at 12:21 p.m., nothing was done. While the ambulance was on its way, Michael Jackson had already had a heart arrest. The world lost a star, and at 2:26 p.m., there was a shock wave. It was said that Michael Jackson was dead at the news of his death spread quickly through UCLA Medical Center, and millions of people around the world mourned the loss of the iconic figure. An autopsy later revealed that he had been killed by a drug combination that made him very high on propellers and benzodiazepines. Dr. Murray felt guilty when the events of that night led to charges of accidental death. The sad events of that night not only claimed the life of one of the world's best entertainers, but they also raised many questions about how he had died and about the people who had been taking care of him. The autopsy report revealed that, in addition to the many health problems that come with being Michael Jackson or myths about him, the autopsy report on the real king of pop, Michael Jackson, which came out in August 2009, gave new information about his health at the time of his death in his old age. Despite how he looked, Michael was said to be in good shape for someone of his stature, with no aortic dissection or any other problem. There were problems with his organs. He was 5 feet 7 inches tall and weighed 136 pounds, which was much less than what a person his height should weigh. His body showed the effects of the extreme stress he had been under for a long time, because of the many surgeries he had already healed from. His body had wounds and generally looked like it belonged to a man who had been almost beaten by his very strict way of life. One of the unrealistic details was how badly Michael's skin and hair were damaged. The paper confirmed this by finding patches of skin that had no color on them. Had from vitiligo, which he has always kept up. He had scars from acne and tattoos of hairs on the front of his head, likely from putting in fake hair. His real hair was said to be thin and short, because it was covered by the wig he always wore outside. This did give us a clue about who the person was. They put in a lot of work to make sure their look stayed the same no matter the time or place. According to the report, Michael's body contained a number of prescription drugs, which is pretty scary. He had a complex mix of sedatives, including lorazepam for anxiety and insomnia, midazolam, and others, Valium and diazepam, but the most worrying substance was propofol, a strong anesthetic that is almost always used for surgery, and was given by Dr. Conrad Murray. Propofol and these other antidotes made up the deadly mix. The amount of propofol in Michael's body showed levels that are usually. Since it was used in full-length surgeries, it was far beyond what he thought it would be used for. The patient died from acute propofol intoxication. The sedative was made very dangerous by the addition of benzodiazepines. The report said that the death was a murder because another person. The antidote was given by Dr. Conrad Murray. The results showed that Michael's search for peace through such extreme measures was ultimately what killed him. This sad assurance not only filled in the blanks about the last few years of his life, but it also showed how serious the health risks he was taking had become. In the last few months of Michael's life, an autopsy revealed a dangerous secret that was hiding in plain sight: a strong drug that not only killed him but also showed a darker side of his desperate search for sleep. This drug, propofol, is a strong sedative that is usually found in operating rooms. Because it has a fast-acting milky substance, it is almost never used in outpatient treatment centers. This is because if it is not administered properly, it can cause severe respiratory failure of the heart or even cardiac arrest. However, Michael Jackson started using it in the late 1990s to help him sleep better after not getting enough sleep. 2 German anesthetists gave it to him during his history tour, and it later played a key role in his recovery. His relatively quick addiction to the drug was already out of control, even though no one would use propofol for surgery at home because it is so strong and dangerous. It is also unusual and unacceptable that it is used in unrestrained situations, like when someone is being watched all the time. Dr. Conrad Murray, Michael's personal doctor, started giving him propofol to help him sleep during the hard rehearsals for the This Is It tour. Murray gave in to Michael's requests, even though he knew how dangerous the drug was and didn't have the right safety equipment on hand. Putting Michael's life at risk by using such a strong drug as an anesthetic to help him sleep was not taken seriously enough, and it ended in his death. Dr. Murray gave Michael several sedatives during the night he died, and when those didn't work, he gave him the last dose of Propel-On. They left Michael alone and he stopped breathing. By the time Murray realized what was wrong, it was too late for him. The poisoning report showed that there was a dangerous mix of Propel and benzodiazepines were to blame for the death, making propofol the drug that helped bring down one of the biggest stars in history. Legal fallout: Dr. Conrad Murray's trial in 2009, not long after the death of pop singer Michael Jackson. Dr. Conrad Murray, the doctor who cared for Jackson, was charged with involuntary manslaughter in February 2010. The prosecution said Murray had indiscriminately applied a dangerous level of Propel without taking the necessary precautions and had failed to keep an eye on Michael's condition during the hearings. The prosecution showed evidence of a lack of regard for the course of practice by pointing out that Murray did not attend to Jackson and called for help very late, among other things. This was seen as gross negligence, which led to the death of the star. The defense, on the other hand, tried to show that Murray did not have any problems with the course of practice. Michael was blamed because he said he killed himself by forcing himself to inject propofol while Murray left the room. This theory was shot down because there is no evidence to support it, and the drug itself needs to be injected by a trained professional. The prosecutor also shot this down by showing how careless Murray was by saying he was making a whopping $150,000 a month to do this. Dr. Murray was found guilty of manslaughter in November 2011 after a tense 6-week trial that included emotional and medical details. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison, but only served 2 years due to good behavior and overcrowding in prisons. The case showed the risks that come with being a doctor, with unethical medical practices involving celebrities, and shocked the public's view of Michael, as well as the doctor's treatment of wealthy patients' legacy tainted or preserved the impact of his death. The news of Michael Jackson's death in 2009 may have been one of the most upsetting times for any pop music fan ever. Millions of fans all over the world were shocked when he died. They were so interested in the man that he became a model of superhuman effort, balancing warm nostalgia for the artist with an objective look at the problems that surround his legacy. Looking at Jackson, people liked the music icon and the. In real life, Jackson was an entertainer who often used race and age differences to make people look like anyone he wanted, rather than showing the truth about who they really were. Jackson's already bad reputation was made worse by disturbing claims about his personal life. Jackson's personality, especially his obsession with small children, remained a psychological puzzle for most people even after he died. Some thought his art was beyond explanation, while others painted a much darker picture of him. As the dust settled on the mourning continent-wide killings, contemplative slaughter king of. Millions of Pop's fans were devastated and equally divided in their feelings about the second coming of the perfectionist, who was so perfect that it was beyond belief. He died at a time when he was at the top of the music world, and the crisis that followed his death led to the creation of euphoric pictures and songs in his honor. There were impersonations, notice shows, operating great attention centers like the Staples Center, and even calls for satellite services to air his funeral for free. Everyone knew what he did and poked geos on him, or whatever Basil did, and made him wear spaghetti and branded pink underwear. His body seemed to inspire a lot of love for artists who were influenced by him and his work in music, dance, and especially humanitarian work. This love faded quickly, though, just as the quiet attention-seeking scandals that surrounded him in his last years ruled the public consciousness. After Michael's death, as the initial phase of grief faded, so did the initial focus on his legacy. When it was time to revisit that legacy, a number of films, biopics, and books all tried to do so. Understand the structure of his life, and always maintained their belief in his innocence and the accusations made against him. The 2019 release of the documentary Leaving Neverland, which included new abuse allegations against him, had its own effects, leading some of his fans and even some organizations to withdraw their support. The documentary took attention away from Michael Jackson's works and added to the controversy surrounding his legacy. There are strong supporters and critics of the man in question, making it clear that his story will be full of controversy for all time. However, Michael Jackson's artistic legacy does not seem to be affected by this. His reputation as one of the greatest entertainers of all time still stands because all of his work, from music to choreography to videos, continues to inspire and produce many more artists, even modern stars like Beyoncé and Usher. Those who have been weakened acknowledge his influence in some way. The estate's efforts to bring back the savior through outward actions, like the success of Cirque du Soleil's shows and the release of Back to the Normal sound albums, have also raised awareness of his influence. While questions about his life are still being debated, his status in music and pop culture means that the character Michael Jackson will be remembered not only as a great man but also as a man who lived in a crazy fame. His story is full of amazing talent, groundbreaking achievements, and complicated controversies. Did you think his music or his personal struggles made him more famous? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the like button, share with other fans, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video by clicking the one on your screen.